Hi, it's Neil here from Green Now Farm. It's the 30th of May 2021. I thought we're unable to have anybody back on the farm as same as last year, so I thought I'd maybe put some videos together. Maybe instead of having one long video this time, maybe have a series of slightly shorter ones and post them maybe on the same day, maybe a couple of days apart, just so you can see various different crops. So started in this field. This is pearl winter barley. This was sown on the 17th of September. I run two systems. I do still plough and power harrow combi drill some of my crops and a part of some of the crops, and I also have a one pass Mzuri system which I run on the other crops. The pearl winter barley is one that I've run both systems on, so I can make a comparison. Most years there's been very little between the actual yield, and obviously the time savings and the fuel savings have meant the margin has probably been slightly better on the Mzuri'd stuff, and you know, I think the soil condition is improving as the years go by. It's in about my 5th or 6th year with the Mzuri, and some fields like this one haven't been ploughed in those 6 years. They've had direct drilled crops put in every year without the plough, and I think the condition of the soil is definitely improving. But I have to say that this year with this particular crop, the winter barley, I'm not sure whether I know it's about margin, not about yield, but whether the margin will make up for the slight drop in yield I think we're going to get between this and the ploughed combi drilled one. This field went into the winter looking really strong, and I thought it was probably slightly ahead of the combi drilled one, but when it came out the winter it was slower to get going. They've had the same sprays, same fertilizer, and it just took that little bit longer to get going. So it barely, I don't know if you can, how well you can see this, but it just barely managed to fill the rows. It does sound like I'm obsessed with that because I always go on about that, but it's just a kind of judge of the crop density. I know you get light inception down between these rows, and you may have a, you know, there is a lovely big head on this barley, and the crop's very clean. But I just would like to see, and I think it maybe dropped a tiller or maybe even two just in the spring when we had a very cold. It came out of the very wet, went very dry, then very cold. So it has, winter barley's not the strongest crop, I don't think, to be putting up with these sort of conditions. So just to give you a little bit of detail, I wrote down some stuff. Yeah, this was a flat rate. All the winter barley I had was just a flat rate seed rate. 205 kilos this was, and it's had roughly around, now I wrote that down, 156 kilos of nitrogen, not a massive amount of nitrogen, and 3 sprays, which is, you know, kept that to a minimum. A herbicide in November, had a fungicide growth reg in mid-April, and then another fungicide in May. And it is, as I say, it is very clean. The crop is looking really well, but I would just like to, you know, it has a lovely big head on it when you see it. You know, it really does look like it could be a nice crop, but I think I'll walk across the road here to the one next door that was sown on the day after, and it was ploughed and combi drilled, and I think it's just that bit denser. It'll maybe end up yielding a bit more. I do think that maybe next year the one thing that I would change is I would maybe go in a little bit earlier with my Mzuri with a direct field. I maybe wouldn't wait, you know, I was trying to wait till a more optimum time, ended up 17th of September, but I think I would maybe go in even earlier and try and get my winter barley in off to a lot better start. I was also considering maybe changing varieties. I think pearl, you know, is an older variety and maybe doesn't quite have the vigour I'm needing to try and put it in with my Mzuri just in a one pass. This was spring barley last year, so I didn't have time to rake it. I didn't think there would be a need because volunteers aren't a problem in spring, you know, winter barley after spring barley. So this was just sprayed off in the stubble after it was baled. Then before I sowed it, we sprayed it off with glyphosate just to tidy up the stubbles, and then just drilled into that about a week later. So that's all it had prior to sowing. So a simple system. But yeah, we'll just cross the road and I'll show you the one that was done with the plough and combination. We're just across the road from the direct drilled pearl winter barley, and we've just come across into this, it's called the flat field. In one of the previous, in fact I think this field's been in 2 previous videos when I'm sowing, one I think maybe sowing wheat and one where I'm sowing spring oats directly into the wheat stubble. So anyway, this is the same crop, pearl winter barley, same seed rate, just a flat rate in here, 205, about 370 seeds per square metre. But I don't know if, hopefully you can see, equally clean, but just maybe 4 or 5 inches longer almost, and a lot thicker, I think. I wouldn't like to put an estimate on the extra heads, but it is a thicker crop. We'll be interested to see. I think the head maybe isn't quite so big, so you know, it might be quite interesting just to see. But this did have a kind of Rolls Royce, you know. It was ploughed, then rolled, then power harder drilled, then rolled. So you know, it did have a lot of work, it did take a lot of time, but I think this year, unlike some of the other ones, it's maybe going to pay off in the fact that even with the margin, it might be a slightly better crop. It's if we can keep it standing. It's had growth reg, but just low rates because it was so cold and things were growing so slowly. But of course, we always knew that was going to change, and I took a risk, and we'll just have to see how that pans out. Or you'll maybe get a laugh at me with a video in the combine of how flat it's gone, but hopefully not, because as you can see, it's a nice looking crop at the moment, and hopefully it can stay that way right through till harvest, but we shall see.